Well, it'll be the Winnipeg Jets and the Edmonton Oilers in the Stanley Cup playoffs once again, but this is the 2.0 era, not the 1.0 era where the Oilers dominated the Jets in the NHL. But of course, if you go back to the WHA days, the Jets beat the Oilers in their two playoff meetings. And their last playoff meeting, of course, was the final game of the World Hockey Association, the Jets winning the Avco Cup. And former Jets defenseman and captain Scott Campbell was a member of that last Jets team to beat the Oilers in the playoffs. So, Scott, it can be done.
Yeah, we got to reach a bit back, but go just a few decades. But those were good times. So, I mean, we got to grasp at something. And right now, after the way the record went this year against the Oilers, I think basically that's probably what we need to do, is to draw from the past a little bit to start with, so that we don't lose total confidence. And then naturally, we got to analyze exactly what's going to maybe happen in this series coming up.
In the playoffs, it's no secret, it comes down to goaltending. And all the pressure will be on Connor Hellebuyck for the Jets, and for the Edmonton Oilers, Mike Smith, who was the best goaltender in the North Division this season. Connor didn't have another Vezina Trophy type winning season this year, but he has, he can come up big in the playoffs, and he has to.
Yeah, well, absolutely he has to. That's no secret there. But we do have to kind of look at his. I think the body of work that we had this year wasn't maybe as bad as some of the highlights that we bring back. I like goals saved above expected, which is a save. Which is there, he's saving more goals than from areas of the ice that really the normal goalie won't be able to make that kind of save. That's a really rough way of saying it, but he's expected to save. He was actually led the league this year in that, and I was surprised because I really didn't have that in my head as him being that spectacular this year. Now on a per game basis, per 60 basis, he ranks still 5th in the league using that stat. So that really is top 5 goaltender type thing. Everybody might not like that stat necessarily because it's so easy just to go to goals against or save percentage, not goals against. That's a terrible stat. But save percentage on its own for all situations. And his numbers were definitely down in that, and when they were down in the expected ones too, but not to the point where I would be worried about him in any sense. I think the word we used last week was concerned. And there's a concern there because even in the last game that he played, we had a giveaway on a goal naturally, because he likes to do that. You got to give them one from behind the net. Now, whose fault that was, that's debatable. He just didn't look quite as sharp as I would have liked to have seen. He looked like he was struggling a little bit. He definitely needed the game though, and maybe because there's so much rest time here, it was one of those ones where it's a nothing game. So I'm not sure, as much as he talks about how confident he is, and after, no matter if he lets in 6 or lets in has a shutout, I got to believe there has to be somewhat of a confidence factor that goes into this too. I mean, he's a human being at the same time.
I look back at all the highlights from the Jets and Oilers games this season, and few things I noticed. Jesse Puljujarvi was a force pretty much in every game. And the Edmonton Oilers like to shoot stick side on Connor Hellebuyck, and they scored a lot of their goals when he was in net for the Jets, stick side.
Well, we should not show this to the Edmonton Oilers, I guess, because maybe they didn't remember what was going on. I didn't realize they did that. I know you mentioned it to me, but it's not something that I can actually address, even because I didn't realize that was one of his weak spots at that point.
Or so they thought it was, because that's where it seemed a lot of the goals was to the stick side.
Yeah, I take your word for that. I'm just saying I just can't speak to it because it's not something I actually noticed. So that's something I'd definitely be paying attention to early in the series.
One thing that was also noticeable was that Nikolai Ehlers was the best Winnipeg Jet in the games against the Edmonton Oilers. And as we tape this, we don't know if he'll be healthy enough for game 1 of the series. Paul Maurice seemed to indicate today, we taped on the Sunday, this preview, that Ehlers would be there along with Pierre-Luc Dubois, Andrew Kopp, and Paul Stastny. The Jets need those players in their lineup.
No doubt. I mean, the series I think will be over fairly quickly if those, especially if all forward out. But they're going to need like a big body like Dubois is somebody that we have to really need to get in the lineup. I mean, to me, he's the type of guy that on his best game could handle Draisaitl, or at least, you know, be one of the guys that has a real chance at doing it. I mean, you're never going to totally shut him down. You're not going to shut McDavid down totally, but that leaves Lowry for McDavid in the right scenario. We definitely don't want to see Scheifele's line up against the McDavid line as far as what's happened over the course of this season, at least. But in my mind, anyways, but they're going to get that matchup, because if it's as bad as it appears to be from what we went through this year, Tippett will be looking for that on the home with having the last home change or last change at home.
But on the positive side, if I can find a positive, the last few games, the Scheifele, Wheeler, and Kyle Connor line have looked really, really good. Best they've looked all season long when they were put together. So that's some kind of positive.
They definitely have looked much better, and it's certainly the right time of the year to do that. The only thing I can throw at, I don't want to be the negative guy here, because it's just that it's the competition that I have to question still. Is that really a resurgence of Blake Wheeler? Is that really the resurgence of Mark Scheifele? Is that the Kyle Connor thing I buy, because not a lot of that is confidence with him, with his goal scoring, and the hands are back. You can see that. I just wonder if that's, I'm hoping that that's just the precursor of the good things to come. I'm just not sure that I could sit there and put all my money on it at this point, because competition is going to be a lot different than it was against Vancouver. Even though they had, I mean, that was one of the spark games, and you love to have that. And they can only beat the team in front of them. You can't beat some mythical team that I want them to play so that they're in playoff ready form. So let's just hope that is the, and I don't know that you still want them up against McDavid's line. I really like the idea of the Lowry line playing in the other end for as much time as they can. But
now, obviously, the Oilers with Draisaitl and McDavid, top two players in the NHL, along with Austin Matthews. But you can nullify their success. I mean, if when Lemieux and Yager were together, the Penguins only won the 2 Stanley Cups. They didn't win any more than that. And after those 2 Stanley Cups, they weren't as dominant. Obviously they had the statistics, but teams found a way to shut them down. So there is a way to shut down top players.
And the playoffs are the time to do it in all likelihood, because you're going to have the relaxing of the rules. So take away ice, you need to take away their space and time with the puck. And they're easy words to say. They're very hard to do, particularly during a regular season than when there's a crackdown when they're actually calling penalties. But if you watch the last couple of games on the weekend here, since the playoffs, the playoff games themselves, the penalties, there are a lot of stuff is being let go. There doesn't seem to be interference being called much at all, if at all. There's certainly some more holding. They're not calling all the little slashes, the right. Attack ones in the hands and that. They're seeing letting a lot go. Those things will throw off the players, because they're going to be. I mean, if you definitely can slow down the guys a little bit. McDavid's still going to be McDavid in open ice, but if you can not let him get to that open ice as much, that's going to really help. And the same thing with Draisaitl. So it's something that sure it can be done. I'm definitely not. I mean, and McDavid's had a slump before. It just doesn't happen very often. And so to sit there and hope for that in a playoff, that's not how I want to look at the series and have all my hopes on that kind of a thing, when it's very unlikely that's going to happen. But he can slump with a lot of help from the referees.
We talked about Connor Hellebuyck for the Edmonton Oilers. Of course, we talked Mike Smith, and he's had a phenomenal season. But we've seen in the past, Mike Smith can turn into a goaltender that is like, what's going on out there with him on the ice?
I mean, Mike Smith's had a tremendous year. I mentioned goals saved above expected there earlier, and he actually was in the top 5 in both per 60 and for overall. And so he was good. He actually was ahead of Hellebuyck on one of those stats. So he not only had the great save percentage, he also had those ones that I like when you dig a little deeper. He magically turns into a pumpkin sometimes, yes, and that's the guy we need to have happen. We need to see in the Oilers net to really give the Jets a really good chance at winning this series. You have to get to Smith because he has stood on his head this year in a lot of games. He's stole games that I've seen, not against the Jets necessarily, but I have actually I've been astounded at his play because I was not a believer in him coming into the year. I thought it was going to be the old Mike Smith we're going to see that we've seen over the last few years, but he's been very, very good.
And the Jets have to play smart. They got to get to the front of the net. They got to take away his eyes. And they also can't just dump the puck in and let him play it, because if he's allowed to play the puck, he can burn them.
Oh, for sure. And he's so good at that part of the game. I mean, this year he's added actually stopping the puck to his repertoire, but he is so good at the puck. And now he does make the odd gaff, which usually turns into a goal because of his confidence with that puck. So the Jets, if they play that right and put the puck in the right spots, like you've suggested, and have a game plan, they game plan around it, which I'm sure they're going to do. They definitely have a shot to make this thing turn a little upside down, because nothing worse than having an empty net goal where you've given the puck away and you're standing in the corner of the rink, and you have to get back into yourself. You're trying to apologizing to your teammates as best you can by trying to make a lot of good saves after that, but that really puts the pressure on you. And I think it's something that the Jets got to take advantage of.
All right, is it time for prediction? I'll give you my prediction. It's either, I believe if the Oilers to win this series, they'll do it in 5 games. If the Jets are to win the series, they'll do it in 6.
I'm a Jets fan, so I'm going to go with the Jets because I'm going to be cheering for them anyway. So there's no way I'm picking the Oilers when I think that there's a definite chance that the Jets, I mean, they've got the numbers like they call Money Puck and these other sites of around 30% chance of them winning. Well, that's 30%. That's better than 0, right? So I'm going to take the Jets in 7. If I'm forced into that, I really don't have any idea though how this series is going to go because there's so many variables. We don't even know who's going to start in the first game really with all these guys that may be out and are hopefully in the lineup. There probably is some dancing in behind the scenes to not let the other team know what's going on, so they can't game plan them for them. And that'll be with both lineups, but particularly the Jets that we're talking about, because we have some very important guys that are questionable at best.
So Scott Campbell, you're telling Jet fans there's a chance.
There's a chance.
All right, Scott Campbell, thank you very much for previewing the Jets and the Edmonton Oilers.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, Joe.